This is another Poets at War General Report. And here's your General, Joshua David Ling.
Good luck.
What's good, everybody? I have another thing to talk with you all about today. This is the General's Report. It is Friday. It actually isn't right now while I'm recording, but that's usually how these Friday ones go. I have a thing that's been on my mind for a while, and I've mentioned it a couple times before, I believe. It's a theory that I have that I wanted y'all's opinion on. So I'd love some interaction in the comments. Please just, wherever you find this video, leave a comment, leave a, little thing in the thread, whatever the case may be. Give me your opinion on this. I wanted to go over specifically something I like to talk about called the Nashville divorce. This is something so prevalent that we've seen it in movies like Footloose and other sorts of things, which, by the way, just saw Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. I really liked it. I mentioned that because of Kevin Bacon. You'll know if you've seen it. Any which way, the Nashville divorce. That's what I call this theory, the Nashville divorce. It's mainly about Nashville, but a little bit more about the South overall, the Southeast in particular. Once you get past the Mississippi River, especially past New Orleans, things kind of begin to change a little bit in the way people think about, artistic jobs, right? Even though we have Atlanta, which is now one of the biggest filming cities in the world, most of the people that live here and work in the industry, when I say here, I'm in Augusta, I'm 3 hours from Atlanta, but still, most of the people who live in Atlanta, who work in the movie industry are, not actors, they're not directors, they're not, that sort of a thing. Or if they are, they're on a smaller independent scale. Hollywood, on the other hand, is still kind of where a lot of the actors and everything were, because they, went there. New York is famous for Broadway and some of the other, places where music and things go. There's a big music culture in Atlanta. There's the biggest music culture in Nashville. Nashville was sort of the first big artistic town in the Southeast. A lot of that had to do with the radio and early recordings of music in the early 1900s being sent out over radio. They'd go to these little hick towns up in the mountains and they'd pick up people, if you've seen the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And they'd give them little, recording deals to record and play back their music, and it was all pretty good. But there were a lot of, unscrupulous people who were trying to make a buck, both in the musicians and in the people who were trying to source the music and disseminate it. And I think the church had a big opportunity and messed up during this time. And we're still seeing the results of it today. What I mean by that is this. If you look into the way people like Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash and a lot of the people before them, they give a lot of lip service to Christianity. Hey, I mean, come on, people nowadays give a lot of lip service to Jesus along with their trucks, their mamas, etc. And that might be the case, but at the same time, we're also getting, and have been getting for a long time, even before it was called woke, a lot of wokeness that has invaded Nashville. Now, you could say it's Machiavellian leftists trying to take over anything of purity or value or beauty, and yeah, there's that perspective, and I think there's some validity to that. But I think there's something else. let's say Jed and his family. Let's say, actually, let's use an example of using my family, my wife's family. There's this guy, Silas Stout, who was in the Johnson City, Tennessee area during that time, and he became a musician. And he didn't make it big or anything, but let's just say he did. Let's just say, for instance, he and his family became the next great music family, right? And they were played all over the radio, and they earned hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And they're paid to go on the road and do concerts and leave their church, leave their town, and travel. They're thrown into a gypsy-ish traveling life. A lot of people who are really, really grounded ended up traveling. And there's nothing wrong with traveling, as long as you're, grounded in wherever God wants you to be. But also the church didn't see it as an opportunity. The church didn't support them. Some may have. But I think the church at large saw this and thought, oh, they've gone to be gypsies. Now, I think part of that, is the idea of traveling carny folk was around at that time. And so, oh, you're just chasing that dream. It's just a dream. It's not real. You're not really going to keep making money. But they did. And I think the people who came alongside them were the unscrupulous people and kind of changed their morals over time. I don't think there's anything inherently bad about the road. I think the road life can be lonely, especially before the age of cell phones and things, and being connected to people that matter, people that are, close. And it's hard to be away from people regardless. But the church still doesn't really support artists who travel. And as a result, there's been a lot of, animosity toward artists in conservative churches who basically what they do is there's animosity toward artists that travel, but then that morphed into animosity toward artists among us. This is your typical Hatfield-McCoy kind of feud going on here. And I think that's the main reason why artists, especially in the South, much less so out West, even in conservative parts of the West, like Texas, they're not really looked at as grounded, mature Christians. They're looked at as flakes and weirdos, and that's just generally a East Coast and Southeast kind of a thing. If you're artistic, you're liberal, right? That just goes hand in hand. Except it doesn't, because God rules art, and God is not conservative, but he is right and righteous. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not talking about even DeSantis and all these other, Republican right-wing people. I'm talking about Christians who believe the Bible, who believe homosexuality is a sin, who believe that abortion is murder, who believe, all of these things that have become so associated with Republican right-wing kind of stuff. And a lot of artists, as a result, have been peer pressured into believing the opposite, and at least justifying it in their own mind. So yeah, what could the church have done better? What can the church do better? How can we, as artists, do better to support our own church? Because there's tons of fault on our side, right? Especially people who live in one area and don't travel, but also the people who travel. Rich Mullins, I think, was a great example of this. He sent his whole check back to the church, and had them give him a salary based on whatever he earned. Everything else they kept for the church. That's great. That's wonderful. That's what I think all of us as artists should be seeking to do, quite frankly. We are the ones who continually point to the beauty of God. Pastors do it sometimes, but when the text demands it. But their job is to preach the word as it is. Our job as artists is to preach the beautiful parts, whether sad, happy, etc., whatever feeling it is, the things that are truly sublime and amazing and awe-inspiring, right? So how can we do better? How can the church do better? And how is it different where you are, if it is, right? I think that one of the reasons that people in the West Coast don't have so much of a problem is because of Hollywood. There's a lot of conservative people who work in Hollywood. They're kind of stigmatized and whatever else, but like, it's sort of the opposite, right? If you're an artist and you're seeking to serve God, great, wonderful. We need more people there. It's sort of an offensive attitude versus a defensive attitude. But yeah, the Nashville divorce. I want to hear your thoughts. This has been Poets at War, the General's Report. Be your family's bard. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and the Lord will be with you wherever you go. We'll see you next time in the trenches.
God of song, said the warrior bard, though all the world betray thee, one sword at least thy right shall guard, one faithful harp shall praise thee.
If these words awoke within you a stirring and radiant fire, please remember even a bard is worthy of his wages and hire. Go to joshuadavidling.com/support to support me and my family.